Hi, Meadows Mustangs. Today I'm going to be reading a favorite book of my kids when they were little, Verde. And when I'm done reading, we'll be discussing this with my kids, Michaela and Luke. So here we go, Verde. Here's our first picture. All right, so Verde's a snake. I think we got that part. On a small tropical island, the sun rose high above the steamy jungle. A mother python, Miss Krz needs glasses. A mother python was sending her hatchlings out into the forest the way all mother pythons do. Grow up big and green as a tree's leaves, she called to her little yellow babies as they happily scattered among the trees. But Bertie dawdled. He was proudly eyeing his bright yellow skin. He especially liked the bold stripes that zigzagged down his back. Why the hurry to grow up big and green, he wondered. Maybe some of the older snakes in the jungle could tell him. Bertie ventured into the treetops to look for them. Here's the next picture. Umbles, Aggie, and Ribbon were lazing on some branches nearby. Bertie peered at their droopy green bodies. It's not polite to stare, chided Aggie. Umbles burped and groaned. It's taken nearly 4 weeks for that last lizard to digest. I surely do like lizards, but lizards don't like me. Why don't lizards like you? Asked Bertie. Don't interrupt, Umbles grumbled. Dear me, whined Aggie. If I don't shed soon, this itchy skin will drive me bananas. Bertie tapped a tune with his tail as he waited to speak. Stop that, Bertie. It makes me nervous, Ribbon complained. Besides, you'll never grow up to be properly green, always interrupting and constantly fidgeting. Bertie couldn't imagine being in such a hurry to be like them, and he really wanted to keep his sporty stripes. Hoping to find snakes that weren't so boring, Bertie slipped away. Dozer was snoring in a tree not far from the others. Hello, said Bertie. Do you want to climb trees with me? I'm tired, Dozy growled. Go do a few laps around the jungle, okay? Bertie's heart sank. Greens were not only lazy and boring, they were rude. Oh, look what Bertie's doing now. At the top of a very tall tree, Bertie gripped one branch with his tail and another with his little snake jaws. I will never be lazy, boring, or green, he thought. I will jump and climb and keep moving so fast that I will stay yellow and striped forever. Then Bertie let go. Oh boy, these are some fun pictures. I'll go slowly scan it. Making a circle there. There's the next picture. There he is flying through the air. From a distance, the greens watched. Oh my, they chorused. Ribbons shook his head. At this rate, he'll be lucky to make it to his first molt. Aggie nodded. He's likely to put an eye out on a branch. Umbles moaned. He may not live to turn green. For you. But the next day, Bertie's skin began to peel, revealing a pale green stripe stretching along his whole body. Cack! He gasped. How can this be? I'm the speediest snake in the jungle and I'm still turning green? He raced down to the river, grabbing up a mouthful of rough leaves. Wonder why he needs some leaves. Bertie flung himself into the water. If I can't run this green off, I'll scrub it off, he thought. Wonder if that's going to work. Here he's meeting a friend. His frantic splashing caught the eye of a large bottom feeder cruising the murky depths. Yum, the old fish hummed. Lunch. Ooh, check that out. Wait, where's the picture? Here we go. Before the fish could haul Verdi under, the frightened snake bit him on the nose. Ah, pooh! With a blast of his rubbery lips, the great fish sneezed, sending Verdi into the air. Slapping onto the soggy shore, Verdi skipped out of reach. Big brave fish. Oh, now look at this picture. It's all brown. Whew, that was close, he sputtered. Every inch of his body was covered with wet, gloppy mud. Kind of lumpy, kind of brown. It sure beats being green. He left the mud on. But the soft brown muck dried into a hard gray shell, and Verdi could barely move. If he even budged, the stuff cracked off in jagged chunks. As each piece fell away, Bertie could see that his body was even greener than before. "This is terrible," cried Verdi. He pictured himself hanging around in droopy loops, itching and complaining and worrying all day, like the old greens. He looked up into the sky, where the sun blazed a beautiful yellow, just the color he used to be. Then he pulled a vine to the top of the tree. I wonder what he's going to do. Launching himself from the treetop, Bertie startled a flock of colorful birds. He became dizzy with delight. Sure, the bright sun and his lofty speed would turn him golden again. He sure likes yellow. In his joy, Bertie forgot he would fall back to earth. Sounds painful. Uh-oh. Whippity-wappity whip-whap, wham! Plummeting through the trees, Bertie landed in a crooked sprawl across a log on the forest floor. He couldn't move. "Help!" he croaked. Wonder who's going to help him. It looks like help is on the way. As usual, the greens had been watching Verdi's antics. They moved quickly to where he lay. "Didn't we say it would come to this?" Umble said, shaking his head. Aggie sighed. Lucky thing, he's still got 2 good eyes. They gently lifted Verdi up to a safer place where they could watch over him while he healed. He looks pretty broken up there. Neatly splintered to a branch, Verdi had no choice but to listen to the greens as they gabbed. "Remember how I used to streak across the forest floor?" Ribbon asked. "Quick as lightning," answered Aggie, "and I climbed giant trees like they were nothing. They grew taller then, you know. The things I dared to run down and swallow," Umbles bragged. "Wild boar were no match for me." Verdi was astonished. "You used to run and climb and hunt giant pigs? What happened?" "Ribbon crashed, just like you," Aggie replied. "I took a terrible fall and almost put an eye out. Then old Umbles here nearly choked to death. Now we all prefer the quiet life. A warm perch, a little sunshine, and an occasional good meal." The greens rambled on about their days of glory, and Bertie settled in on his branch. Finally, one afternoon, Umble said, "Looks like you are ready to go again." He carefully untied Verdi from the branch. "You are welcome to come with us," said Aggie. Ribbon agreed. The 3 greens slipped quietly back into the forest. Verdi wasn't ready to join them. He wasn't sure he wanted to go, so he just stretched and stayed put until the sun went down. He listened to the forest come alive. See how green he is? He's so green now, whoops. That was his worst nightmare. Oh, here's a big panoramic picture. And one more. Cute. What is that thing? It's really cute. Time passed. The sun and moon took turns in the sky. Birdie marveled as the full moon grew thinner every night. Then he watched patiently as it slowly grew round again. He wondered why he hadn't noticed that before. Birdie became so green that he blended perfectly with the leaves. He was so still that other creatures walked right by without even seeing him. One fine morning, as Birdie basked in the sunshine, two small yellow snakes approached. They tapped and fidgeted as they stared. "Get a load of that old green guy," one of them whispered. "Do you think he ever moves?" The other snickered. "I seriously doubt it." "They're just like I used to be," thought Birdie, "and now what I was afraid to be." He looked at his big green body and slowly smiled. "How would you like to climb trees with me?" he asked. "With you?" The yellows were astounded. "I'll even show you my fancy figure 8, Birdie replied, though he was a little worried about putting his eye out. Sounds like we have some construction going on next door. Oh, look how fancy. With practice, the snakes formed a perfect triple figure 8. Leaping and looping with his little striped friends, Birdie laughed. "I may be big and very green, but I'm still me." The end. I hope you enjoyed that story, boys and girls. Next video, I'm going to discuss it with my son, Luke. Hi, Meadows Mustangs. I just read a great book called Verde. And it was so good that I want to continue a conversation about it, but I'm not quite sure where to start. So today's lesson is how to talk about books. And a person who's going to be helping me is a special guest, Luke Krz, my son. One of the ways that we can push our thinking is to think of some sentence starters that help push our thinking. So Luke and I are going to talk a little bit about what we thought about Birdie, and if we run out of ideas, we're going to refer to the chart to help us out. You ready, Luke?
Yes.
We've done this twice already, so I think we're going to get really good at this now. So I'm going to start. I've noticed that Birdie is yellow, and I think that the author makes a big deal about Birdie being yellow versus green. So I've noticed that in a lot of places he's yellow and he doesn't want to be green. Do you have anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that the yellow represents being a kid and how a lot of kids don't want to transition into more adult stuff. And the green is the adult stuff. And he doesn't want to have to go through that stuff. And he wants to stay being a kid. And he thinks once you're an adult, you can't have fun, which isn't true.
We can attest to that.
Yes.
You still have a lot of fun. All right. Do you want to pick one?
Yes. So I'm wondering about the fish, why he would go after Birdie. I was not aware that fish like to go after snakes, and that caught my attention, and I just thought that was really interesting.
Well, especially not a catfish, right?
Yeah.
That kind of, and it's one thing, time out for a second, boys and girls, is one thing that readers do is they take an idea that one person started and push our thinking a little bit more. So I'm going to add on to that and say maybe the author knows things about this kind of fish and this kind of snake. I mean, are catfish that aggressive? I don't know. But I'm guessing the author must know that in order to put it in. Right, I'm going to give it a go. I've run out of ideas. I'm going to go with an easy one. I liked. All right, so I'll go all the way to the end of the story and say that I really liked how Birdie, who did eventually grow up, realized that it is okay to be an adult because he's still him inside. And in this particular picture, I liked how all of them flew in the air and made a figure 8.
And to go off what Miss Krz is saying, you could use that as what the author might have meant for the book, which could be one of the harder questions, and how growing up might seem dull, but you still are a kid. You can still be a kid at heart, and like Birdie was, he still could play with the yellow snakes who thought he didn't have that in him still, but he was still able to play with them.
Mm-hmm. How about we do one more? We'll do one more. Okay. Should we do I'm Wondering or That Reminds Me?
Go with That Reminds Me.
Okay, I know the perfect one for that one. Because when I was reading this in an earlier video and Verdi decided that he was going to put mud on himself like that, that reminded me of a time when I put a face mask on to have good skin, and then it all caked and crumbled off, and I will say, kind of looked like a monster. Have you ever seen your mom or dad look like that? Dads can do that too. Well, that picture reminded me of that, and it didn't stop me from growing up, and it didn't stop Birdie from growing up either. Have you ever seen me wear a mask?
I have not.
Lucky him. All right, boys and girls, one of the ways we want you to learn how to extend your thinking is to talk about the books that you read. And you can do that with your brother, your sister, your mom, or your dad. But when you finish a book, go talk about it with somebody. And if you run out of ideas, use some of these from our chart. Thanks for listening to Luke and I today.
Thank you.
Bye, Mustangs.
Bye.